Now, let us see what are these UKPSF, which is the UK Professional Standards Framework. And this is like a backbone for your application. You have to be familiar with these PSF, with these Professional Standards Framework. So, you will find in the web page of Advanced HE all of these links that will take you to details about these UKPSF. So what are these PKUSF? UKPSF. It provides a general description of the main dimensions of the roles of teaching and supporting learning within the higher education environment. So there are three main dimensions in the framework. So it has an area of activity, the core knowledge, and professional values. Probably all of us aware and familiar with the learning objectives of any subject, of any topic. For at the level of the students, the learning objectives include either skills, knowledge, or attitude. So if you think of that, so the skills are equivalent to area of activity, so you need to provide evidence for your skill in teaching in the area of activity. But the knowledge, also you need to provide an evidence for your knowledge in your field. And regarding the attitude there in the learning objectives is equivalent to values. So there are some professional values that also you need to demonstrate and provide evidence of in order to get your fellowship. So these are the three dimensions, so the area of activity, professional values, and core knowledge. So all of these need to be demonstrated. You need to provide evidence for these three dimensions of the professional standards framework. So this is the basic the basics of the career in academia. So you have to have skills in teaching, you have to have core knowledge in your specialty, and as well you need to provide to have values there in showing respect for this career. And this is the aims of this framework. So you can go through these 5 aims. For example, support the initial and continuing professional development of staff engaged in teaching and supporting learning, and so on. So this shows the aims of the PSF. Okay, so you remember the 3 corners of that triangle, the areas of activities, the core knowledge, and the professional values. Inside each of these dimensions, there are some statements. For example, the area of activity, we have 5 statements there from A1 to A5. For core knowledge, we have 6 statements there. K1, abbreviated as K1 till K6. For the professional values, we have 4 statements from V1 to V4. So if we want to zoom in and just quickly go through these statements in each of these dimensions. Regarding the dimension 1, which is the area of activity, for A1 refer to design and plan learning activities and or programs of study. So we need to provide evidence that you are involved in the design and the planning. And A2 is the teaching process, teach and or support learning. So you need to provide evidence that you are teaching. And A3 is assist and give feedback to learners. So again, you need to provide evidence that you are involved in this area of activity. Area 4 is to develop effective learning environment and approaches to student support and guidance. Area 5 to engage in continuing professional development in subject discipline and their pedagogy, incorporating research, scholarship, and the evaluation professional practices. So you need to provide evidence for these 5 areas of activity in order to get your fellowship. طيب, regarding the knowledge, the core knowledge, what are these 6 statements? Statement number 1, K1, abbreviated as K1, refer to the subject material. You have to provide evidence that you have a knowledge, you have core knowledge in your subject material. K2, appropriate method for teaching. You have knowledge in appropriate method for teaching, learning. What are different strategies in teaching and learning? So this is what's meant by K2. K3, you have also to know and have a knowledge about how students learn, both generally and within their subject or discipline area. K4, you have to, of course, provide evidence that you know the use and value of appropriate learning technologies. You know, we are in the area of an era of technology now. Digital learning is considered a very important part in the learning process, especially in our time now. K5, you need to also to provide evidence that you have knowledge in methods for evaluating the effectiveness of teaching. And K6 is the implication. You have to show knowledge in implications of quality assurance and quality enhancement for academic and professional practice within a particular focus on teaching. Regarding the third dimension, which is the professional values, V1 is to you have to provide evidence that you respect individual learners and diverse learning communities. So you have to provide evidence that you are considering this V1. Similarly, V2, promote participation in higher education and equality of opportunity for learners. The value 3 is to use evidence-informed approaches and the outcomes from research, scholarship, and continuing professional development. V4 is to acknowledge the wider context in which higher education operates, recognizing the implications for professional practice. طبعا for each one of these you need طبعا to get more information what is meant and a clear explanation for this you will find in all booklets and documents there in the web page of Advanced HE. Very thorough explanation of these statements of the 3 dimensions is provided in documents in that web page of Advanced HE. If you want to apply for associate fellowship, which is the lowest degree of fellowship, you need to show engagement in at least two of the 5 areas of activities. So for the the first dimensional area of activity, which are 5, okay, but if you want associate fellowship, at least two or more, you need to provide evidence for that. Regarding the knowledge, you need to طبعا show and provide evidence for core knowledge of at least K1 and K2. K1 and K2. Provide evidence for more. This is of course good, but at least for these 2, K1 and K2. They didn't specify for area of activity, but they specified for the knowledge, K1 and K2 at least. Regarding the values, the professional values, they mentioned that commitment to appropriate professional values in facilitating others learning. So again, they didn't specify out of the 4 values, but you need to consider what is appropriate for these areas of activities and the knowledge that you are طبعا providing evidence for. You link that with the appropriate values. If you are applying for fellowship, so you need to provide evidence for all 5 areas of activities, for all 5 areas, from area of activity 1 to 5. And regarding the core knowledge, again, you need to provide evidence for all 6, from 1 to 6, and again for the values for all 4 values. Okay, so all statements of all, these are all 10. Collectively, they are 10 statements. You need to provide evidence for all of these in your application. Regarding the senior fellowship, again, they need to provide evidence for all these, sorry, 15, maybe I said 10 before, 15 statements in these different dimensions. But in addition, they need to provide evidence that they coordinate, support, supervise, and manage or mentor others in their department or college. For the principal fellowship, again, they need to apply to provide evidence for all 15 يعني statements in the three dimensions, as well as there is طبعا specific requirement from them to provide evidence that they are involved in strategic leadership and in policy making.